Welcome, listeners, to the sixth episode of the Smart with the Heart podcast. Today, we have with us Jake Sparano. Jake is a distinguished alumni from the United States Military Academy, who graduated in 2018 with a Bachelor of Science in Sociology. Following his graduation, he was commissioned as a field artillery officer in the United States Army. Over the course of his military career, Jake has served in a variety of demanding and diverse roles across multiple locations, including Georgia, Washington, South Korea, and Australia. After a commendable tenure in the Army, Jake transitioned from military service in mid-2023. He is now poised to begin his next chapter of his professional life this fall as he joins the prestigious MBA program at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, where he aims to integrate his extensive leadership expertise and advanced business strategies. Jake, what a pleasure to have you here, brother. Thanks for being on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man.
So, Jake, let's start at the beginning of your journey. You graduated from the United States Military Academy with a degree in sociology. So how did your liberal arts background shape your approach to leadership and your problem solving in the military?
Yeah, so something I really appreciated about sociology was it gave me a really good understanding of groups. It gave me an understanding of people from diverse backgrounds, which is something I wasn't really exposed to much growing up. So I think it really prepared me to be a platoon leader and prepared me to be in the Army where, standing in front of formations of soldiers from all over the world. So I really appreciate that. However, it kind of left me scratching my head when I was thinking maybe it's time to get out of the military because I didn't really quite understand what sociologists do outside of the Army, I guess, besides maybe continuing their education, social work, things like that. It definitely prepared me to be in the Army, but afterwards, I think it gave me a foundation to kind of investigate, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it.
I can kind of relate on a very strong level. I majored in defense strategic studies. I don't know if you remember those guys, DSS majors. Yeah, we majored in HUA. So for me, I legitimately thought I was going to be General Randall one day. And so when I was contemplating the idea of getting out, that was also hard because my entire background just screamed at me saying, you've been preparing from the very first day, like to stay in, like, what are you doing? So I totally get it. So, but those are great insights with regards to like how that undergrad influenced your leadership, your time in the military. I do want to know though, many wonder if a liberal arts degree is a viable path to an MBA. I've even heard some people say like, I can't get an MBA because I got a liberal arts degree. So what prompted you to pursue an MBA and how did your undergraduate focus influence that decision?
Yeah, so I actually had the same question as I was exploring what would life outside the military look like. I was thinking I'd have to stick something sociologically related, like maybe get my master's in sociology, something like that. It wasn't until I talked to some buddies who had gotten out before me and were getting their MBA, and they're like, "Hey, an MBA can land you in different companies. You could explore tech career, consulting, banking, and they really appreciate people from all sorts of backgrounds, not just like individually, but professionally and academically. So having a liberal arts degree is kind of a way for them to diversify the population of students going through their programs and going into the business world. That was a shock for me because I was thinking you had to maybe have some sort of STEM degree or business background to be more competitive, but it's not the case at all. I think my sociology degree kind of helped me complement my time in the Army. Kind of say like, hey, well, my background prepared me to lead diverse groups and I want to lead diverse groups in the business world now. And I think it played in really nicely. It was just a matter of illustrating how it all ties into, I guess, who I am and my narrative.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Because the whole premise around veterans applying to MBA programs, and minorities applying to MBA programs, it's because we're different. We're not the cookie cutter individuals that are applying straight out of a business sector to go straight into this graduate school pipeline. So I think you're right on line with like traditional vets or traditional minorities applying to these schools. We're just a little bit different, and that sociology degree certainly differentiates you and brings in diversity of thought into the academic space. Let's talk about a more delicate subject that, again, a lot of folks struggle with: GPA in your undergrad. And I know a lot of vets, especially us cats who came from the service academies, who struggle with our undergrad GPA, or at least believe it's so low that it might not allow us to actually get into some of these programs. So, Jake, can you touch on that about your experience at all?
Yeah, I'm a poster child for low GPAs and not self-selecting. I graduated West Point with a sub 3.0 GPA. I'll be even more specific, sub 2.8. It was very low. I had some things that happened in my undergrad that kind of explained it, but a lot of it also was maturity and figuring myself out and just getting an understanding of how important academia is and focusing in class. When it came time to think about MBAs, I self-selected. I was like, maybe I'll just get one in my hometown and go from there. Nothing wrong with that. But it wasn't until I talked to some other vets and Smart with a Heart, where it's kind of like, hey, you're ruling yourself out with your GPA. Just because you have a low GPA doesn't mean that you're automatically barred from these schools. You can kind of frame yourself as like, hey, I am successful in spite of my low GPA. It does not illustrate who I am. Look at everything I've done from there to kind of show like, hey, I'm ready. The GPA doesn't rule me out. Having those conversations really changed my perspective. It made me think like, man, maybe I could be a part of these programs, and getting into Booth, I think, is a testament to that. Although I had a very low GPA, especially compared to the averages of Booth and similar programs, they still accepted me. So it was just everything else. And I'm really glad I had that revelation because it would have changed a lot.
Yeah, I think so many people need to hear that. I can't emphasize this message clearly enough. Just don't self-select. Yeah, so many of us listening to this, so many minorities that Smart with a Heart is trying to help already believe that they can't get into these programs because of X, Y, and Z, when in fact that is just so not true. And that's why Smart with the Heart is really trying to break down those barriers to higher education, and help people with these standardized tests, which is a true marker of preparation and capability to perform in these schools. And I want to now go into Smart with the Heart's role in helping you in application process. Can you tell me how you came across Smart with the Heart? What was your GRE preparation like? And what was that interaction with the organization like?
Yeah, so it's a pretty long history, if I'm being honest. It started, maybe 2021, maybe, if I remember correctly. I showed up to Captain's Career Course, and part of Captain's Career Course when I went through was they have you take the GRE. So I liked it because I was still on the fence about getting out of the military, and I was like, well, this will kind of serve as a benchmark to see if I have a case for applying to a top MBA. I studied passively, doing a self-study program, and I did well. I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I think I got a 319, not bad, but with my GPA, I really wanted to overrule that and kind of show like, hey, I have academic success, or I can be successful in an academic environment. So from there, I heard about Sherpa Prep through some like online communities talking about like, hey, I'm a veteran. I did Sherpa Prep for my GRE tutoring. I'm somebody who definitely needed that. I feel like the GRE for me was not a one-man sport. I needed somebody to kind of help me study, go through it. I need that forcing function of like, hey, we're going to have a lesson on this day. You need to be prepared for it. You need to do the homework, things like that. So I signed up for the GRE study course. It was twice a week online with Jay. And Jay took me from zero to hero, man. It took me a couple tries. I took the GRE 3 times total, and I'm glad I gave myself the time to do that. But I ended up with a 327. And that I think that made the case. Obviously it did.
Yeah.
So from there, it was more of like, how do I present myself the right way? I have these ideas in my head. How do I sort them out? How do I make my application make sense? And that's where I went to Smart with a Heart. I called Nafiz, and he and I had a little chat. And I was still very self-conscious about my GRE score. I was like, I know the writing on the wall, my GPA, my GRE score. And Nafiz was like, what do you mean, man? Your GRE score is great. We can talk away your GPA, or we can, I guess, construct your narrative to show that like you were successful in spite of what your GPA was in undergrad. And I think that right there just kind of showed that he was genuinely interested in helping me present my best self. And that sold me right there to Smart with a Heart.
During the time you were studying and applying to all these schools, were you still in the military?
Yes. So I started my transition towards the end of round 1 applications. Oh, it was a struggle. Like not only trying to ETS, I did a skill bridge, which is where at the end of your military service, they connect you with a civilian company. You work with them for a little bit, kind of like an internship. But I think the most difficult part was I was sent on a combat training rotation right around when round 1 applications were due. So I was in Australia applying to schools, doing research, getting my application ready. I thought it was really going to impact me because it's a completely different time zone. It was very difficult to work with Nafiz. At least so I thought. He was very flexible. It was awesome. It was to the point where if we couldn't schedule calls, he would record videos and send them to me. So maybe if I can only answer at night when he's asleep, I still have some communication with him. He was very easy to talk to, easy to work with. I don't feel like I lost my stride, even though I was on the other side of the world working with him. That was way above and beyond what I expected when I first signed up to work with him. I thought it was going to be a pause in my consulting relationship with him, but no, it went just fine, and I ended up applying to 12 schools around one, despite being on the other side of the world.
Wow. Okay, 12 schools, round one, and all of which Nafis kind of hand walked you through it. That's absolutely amazing. I mean, and that's the boutique style care that we're trying to let people know, like, this is what exists. It's not just GRE prep, but this is the admission consulting. All right, so with your MBA program starting soon, what are you looking forward to do at Booth? What are you thinking that you're going to get involved in? What are you going to specialize in? Where are you hoping to go in your next chapter after Booth?
Oof, that's a good question.
Loaded, yeah.
I think for now, I think long term, I want to end up in social impact. I
Mm.
really do. The advice I was given was the best route to go is to start with consulting. So do consulting for a while and then find an exit opportunity in some social impact firm. Maybe just do social impact consulting. So that's the goal. I think in a perfect world, I'll do consulting until I don't enjoy it anymore, until I find a great opportunity and then move to an impact firm. Now at Booth, I hope to do the nonprofit fellows board. So they put you on as a voting member of a board of directors for a nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
in Southside Chicago, which is something that really drew me to the school. I was like, man, that's an awesome opportunity to make a change and kind of learn how a nonprofit runs from a higher level. Hope to do that. I hope to join the Booth hockey team. Super awesome. I didn't know about that until I visited the campus. And then just be involved in the armed forces group and mentor other veterans looking to apply.
That's great. That's a well thought out plan, especially like, trying to get into the social impact field. You mentioned visiting campus. Ken, you actually told me that visiting campus was a huge factor in where you ultimately decided to go. Can you touch upon why you think that visiting campuses is important in this application process?
Yeah, 100%. So when I started my MBA investigation process, I lived or died by the class rank or
Yeah,
the MBA ranking.
don't we all?
I said a hard stop. Yeah, I think it makes sense. If you want to go to a top program, you should tie your aspirations to the ranking. However, as I had time, I decided, like, let me go visit some schools that I wanted to go to, schools maybe I was just learning about. Let me visit the campus and kind of learn more about it. And boy, did my perspective change. I think Booth is the best example. Booth was on my radar, but I wasn't dead set on applying until I visited campus once, kind of on a whim. Me and a buddy were going to Chicago. We signed up and did a tour, and I fell in love. It was awesome. I was like, man, I definitely want to
Mm,
apply. Had I not visited, I wouldn't have learned about the classroom environment, learned about the professors. I wouldn't have learned about like the culture there, and that fed not only fed into my essays, but fed into my decision making process. And then there were some other schools that I visited, and I was like, man, I don't know if this is for me. Like, it's a great program, great people, but I don't see myself meshing as well as other schools. If I had to give one piece of advice to people looking at MBA programs, I'd say tour campuses as you feasibly can when you can afford it. It's not a make or breaker, but it really fed my decision making process. And I think had I not visited Booth, I wouldn't be going there.
Well, Jake, so as we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners? Any parting words of wisdom, insight, anything that you want to share before we close up?
Yeah, I guess if you're watching this podcast, you're probably wrestling with the question of like, do I need an MBA consultant? Right? Is MBA consulting for me? Like, will it help my application? My last bit of advice I'd give is explore different groups, explore Smart with a Heart, schedule a call with Nafis. For me, it didn't feel necessary, but I felt like I wanted an extra vote of confidence. I wanted an extra set of eyes, experienced eyes to look over my application and stuff. And I think it was a night and day difference in my essay draft before I applied, my narrative, versus when I press submit. I owe a lot of that to the fee. So if you're
Yeah.
looking to have somebody with years of experience look over your application, help you through the decision making process, what schools do I go to, how to negotiate scholarships, all that support after you press the submit button as well, I think Smart in a Heart would be a great option for you.
You are the sixth person who's been on this podcast, and I've only interviewed 6 people on this podcast, and every single one of you say Nafeez is the one who really got me where I am. And I think that's absolutely incredible. Jake, thank you so much. I'm going to include your LinkedIn profile in the show notes in the event that anybody can relate to you, both on like the GPA or the liberal arts education as an undergrad, to maybe even reach out to you, connect with you. Jake, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.